the DRC, we've been exporting power since the 50s. There's nothing wrong with power export. I should make it very clear. We export power to Malawi, and Malawi also exports power to us, because they supply our two towns, Chama and Lundazi, and we export power to. We do export power now from Lunzua. We are exporting to Tanzania, to the southern, to the eastern power. That's why by this government to greed, failure to appreciate history and institutional memory, because they fired everyone who matters at ZESCO. Up to 50 senior engineers and managers were fired at ZESCO. So the new guy, although he worked there before, literally knows nothing, because the institutional memory of 50 collective engineering brains is far better than one. So why do I say mismanagement? Is that from the technical information being given by Zambezi River Authority, an entity that runs the Zambezi River and consequently runs the water in Kariba Lake. In May, they give you warning that at the rate Zambia and Zimbabwe you are generating power, you will exhaust the power the water that is here. First, another thing, Lorenzo, we should make very clear. We have load shedding, not because we have a drought. We don't have a drought. We haven't had a drought since 2020. We must make that very clear, because there's a lot of lies being perverted that we have drought. That's why the water in Kariba is low. So people should understand climate change. The last time we had a drought on record is 2019. 2015, 2017, and 2019. 2020, we had normal. Meteorological department, normal and above normal. That's what we had the last 3 years. So we've had normal and above normal rainfall, good rainfall season. In fact, we had floods. Floods means a lot of water in a short period of time. So the reason we are load shedded is not because we have poor rainfall. It has nothing to do with poor rainfall. It is purely a mismanagement issue. So Zimbabwe, remember, was producing 700 megawatts on the South Bank. They increased by 330 megawatts. So they were now doing 1,080. Zambia also has installed new power machines. So instead of the 730 that we used to have, we also increased by 360, and we are producing 1,080 megawatts. So the two countries have increased generation by almost 650, 700 megawatts. We've doubled. So the lake and the amount of water we are using at a time is more than we've been using in the past. That is why the Zambezi River Authority issued an alert in May. If you go to their website, their first alert was in May, that both Zambia and Zimbabwe were using too much water too quickly. What did this government do? They even operated. They put all the machines on full throttle, because they had now signed these exports with Namibia, 180 megawatts. You heard the managing director even boast that was going to bring $500 million in the next 10 years. He even actually upgraded his own position and the position of his directors. They even rewarded themselves these huge, huge pecks as a result of that signing. Right. Zambezi River Authority warned, you are using too much water. The next alert came in August. They ignored it. By November, they had to shut down both Zambia and tell Zimbabwe to shut down completely, and for Zambia to reduce from 1,080 megawatts to 660 to 440. Now we are hovering between 250 to 300 megawatts. So it was as a result of our own misuse of that water in the lake and failure to adhere to instructions and guidance from the authority, Zambezi River Authority. Failure to have difficulties where politicians think, for example, the bus for government should be dedicated to whatever activity, sometimes even to party activities. So there's that mentality of abuse of public resources
that creeps in.
That is there that we have to fight. So yes, ZESCO could have been run better, and I hope that we can run it better. ZESCO is being run worse than the PF ran it, worse than the MMD ran it, at the manner, the wanton dismissals, the abuse of resources, you have a management that takes $107 million to Zimbabwean and South African companies in wooden paws. When your own law, the Zambia Procurement Act of 2020, forbids you to do that. That act, responding to the cries of Zambians, said all major works by government, all major procurements by government and state-owned agencies should be given to Zambians. They disregarded that. And they gave $107 million to Zimbabwean and South African entities against the law. They've done the same in fertilizer. They are ignoring the law. They are following what they call direct bidding, because then it excludes you from what the law requires, that the company that should win any big tender in government is citizen-owned first. In fact, if there is any good news that Zambians should know, is that there is a law, the Zambia Public Procurement Act of 2020. Zambians need to know about this law. It has said any major construction, any major purchase, any major procurement should go to citizen-owned first companies. So I saw on the huge shortages of medicine and medical supplies, a parliamentary select committee sat, and among the recommendations, they bemoaned that some contracts were given to Zambian companies. That is why there's medical shortages, and they said we should amend the law to allow foreigners to do some of these bulk supplies. I said, what unpatriotic feelings are these? You have a law. A Zambian doesn't have capacity because you don't give them capacity, because you don't give them orders. So how will you build the capacity in Zambians? Is using that law. If Lorenzo, I give you a contract to supply wooden paws worth $15 million to ZESCO, you don't have to have capacity. Your contract will be your capacity, because a bank can finance you on the basis of that contract. And if there is reliability on the payment, you can structure it in a manner that the payment goes to the supplier and to your bank first before you even get your profit. So you have a law, a very good law that Zambians must be aware of. Just look for that law. The enemies are trying to amend that law. That's why they are scandalizing the procurement process. So fertilizer in this country, fuel in this country will not be bought, will not be a sector by foreigners if government followed that law. But they are bypassing that law. They are going what we call direct bidding, single sourcing, because single sourcing and direct bidding is emergence procurement. So they are abusing the emergence procurement to then give these big businesses to foreigners. Again, against the patriotic feelings of our people, against national interest, against our own citizens. So when our businessmen are crying, businesswomen are crying, it's your own government and your own ministers and your own permanent secretaries that since 2020, be aware, since 2020, if you see any major works, I'm told they're about to do the road as a PP, this big road, Lusaka, Ndola, Jokarejo. I hope they'll follow the ZPPA Act. The ZPPA Act says any purchase where government subvention will be used, where money appropriated by parliament will be used, you have to give them to citizens first. But you will see they'll sign with the Chinese. They'll sign with the foreign companies at the expense of our people. So even when we make laws that should benefit our people, these technocrats and the political thieves have a way in which to circumvent the law, like they've done. So you have procurement of fertilizer. The bulk of it has gone to foreigners. The amount was how much? Over $300 million. It's gone to foreigners. Fuel. Who's running your fuel? Who's importing your fuel? Yet your law say give it to citizen-owned company. I just gave an example of Zesco. $107 million in wooden poles given to 10 foreign companies. None of them is a Zambian.
Okay, we're going for a breather. When we come back, we continue interacting. You're at liberty to join in the discussion. I'll be reading your comments that you've been sending us via Facebook Live in a teeny tiny bit. So we'll be back after the news and commercials right on Chatback. Stay tuned.
Zambia, we are witnessing the beauty of change.
So this is a 10 minutes break?
No, it's less than 10, about 8.
About 8?
Yeah, 6,
okay.
7, 8.
Our dear listeners, I'll ask you to be patient. Our radio station is running adverts. They have to pay the bills. And if you have any questions, you can just put it on my page, or for those that know my number, they can send the question or contribution. Let me have the number, the phone. I begin to check. If there's any matter that you want us to raise, if there's any matter that you want us to clarify, you can just send it to any of the pages where you are watching from. I will try to quickly update myself and answer you. Okay. Okay, so Lubuta Makasa says, everything I'm saying, we left them. So why didn't we do them? We went to a coalition. That's why some of us are looking for this leadership. We are participating in national leadership. We know what can be done. We know what needs to be done. We know what policies needs to be done to benefit our people. And you have marginal influence, for example, as a permanent secretary. You have marginal influence, for example, as an ambassador. I've been away for the last 7 years and had a job to do. I don't know how I can influence my president. Just like your ambassador in New York, I don't know how much is influencing President Hakainde Hichilema. It's not possible because you have a job to do, and the work, for example, at the UN or AU is so involving, it takes up to sometimes 12 hours of your day. So if things are wrong, you hope that the president's advisors, the president's ministers, their cabinet meeting will resolve the crisis. But I've seen this burden being placed on me that I should have advised the government. Well, I did many times. Go to my Facebook page. I did advise several times, but it was not my role. My role was that of an ambassador, and I was in South Africa dealing with South African issues. South Africa is your largest trading partner, and I had a job to do. I was at the African Union dealing with Africa's and world issues, and I had my way. But occasionally, if things went bad, I put on my Facebook page. But the president has his special advisors. He has his own ministers. These are the primary advisors to see how he's running the country. I don't see how a permanent secretary in Northern Province can advise the president and leave Northern Province and tell him, President, where are his advisors, paid advisors? So, Lubuta, I want to answer that. Yes, I know there is what we call collective responsibility. I know there is what is called that you have to stand by the decision of your government. I know that. Alex Holland says, well, the way things are being done is like same monkeys but changing branches. The faith by Zambians in politicians has gone down, especially with the numerous lies by this government. Someone joked with me that it would be very difficult for anyone to lie their way to State House again. Hakainde Hichilema is the last liar to become president. I think because our people who no longer believe what we say, because we lie a lot. I agree with you. Woluneta says he's watching with us from Lukulu, Western Province. Thank you, Woluneta. Alan says, Emmanuel, why don't you go visit the country? You can't win on radio alone. Well, thank you for the advice. I'm looking at that. Let's go to another page. We see your questions and contributions.
Yes, thank you, Banda.
Oliver Shalala Walubuli is congratulating Chibamba Kanyama's new ambassador to where I don't know. Oliver Shalala, Mwalimu Ishwa Oliver Shalala is one of our biggest team praisers for the UPND and a media expert. So Oliver Shalala will actually Olubuli. Why are you congratulating Ambassador Chibamba? Because he gave succinct advice. If he's got the job, congratulations. But what I know about the position of ambassador is at first what we call a grimoire is sent to the country, is approved, then the president comes and swears you in and then unveils you to the country. So there's a long process unless that process is complete.
For a minimum of 50,000 kwacha and stand a chance to be one of 12 lucky winners to have their loan bought back.
Okay, where is the other page?
Don't feel left out. Top up your loan with 50,000 kwacha and you too can stand a chance to have your loan paid back. Non-FNB customers can get in on this too. Simply transfer your loan to FNB and stand a chance to win back your loan. Promotion ends 20th March 2023. Visit your nearest FNB branch to speak to a consultant or call 362 today.
So Richard Chanda says he's watching us from Kitwe. Thank you, Richard Chanda. Keep on watching. Charles Mabando says, very good discourse. Yes, we have a country to save.
A dirty playground where everyone plays with a cautious eye. Goals get missed. Dreams
Let me
get
check on the other page.
Crime takes over. Every minute counts. Catch all the hits and misses. Watch Petreta, coming 24th November only on Showmax. Sign up on showmax.com.
I need a bank that can help me sort out my children's school requirements quick.
Manabope, I'll pay you back your money this month then. Just give me some time. I need to get a loan as soon as possible. I wish I had a gas stove. Cooking would be so much easier.
Oh, it's a birthday for Simon Mlenga Mwila, the lawyer and our dear brother from Socialist Party. Happy birthday, my dear brother. God bless you and God prosper both your political and legal career.
Where can I find some money quickly? Looking for a quick solution? Don't worry. Kasove fast. Not quick. Get an instant salary backed loan.
So Jabez Piri says, UPND lies every day. Are they allergic to the truth? The truth hurts. No wonder your response. UPND is always lying and justifying lies. Kanyanta Chewe says, I like your sobriety in your provision of checks and balances. Things ain't good right now. Don't you think the president needs prayers and support? I say this because I noted with dismay some malicious attack on the president from asset citizens who should at this trying moment be development-oriented, not political. The president is our own, and some submissions are rather confusing to him than constructive. Kanyanta Chewe, ngapali umulandu bafuile basumina tu mulandu epoli. Ngapali ya mafia bafuile basumina tipali ya mafia. What we have is a national crisis, and this government refuses to accept that there's a crisis. They refuse to accept that we are in a deep-seated economic and social crisis. What they do is they just blame the PF. It's a PF to blame. Debt, they say it's a PF to blame. No water in Kariba, it's a PF to blame. The PF didn't build adequate capacity. Even when the PF built adequate capacity, they blame the PF day in, day out. So how then can they resolve the problem? Because they've failed to accept that they are in the driving seat, that are the ones to resolve this issue.
Okay, starting in about a minute.
Okay, colleagues, please join Lorenzo as we go live again on this program. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, they say. So
Yes,
leadership
yes.
comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
Going at only 70 kwacha, and in the presence of God by Phoebe Court going at only 75 kwacha. Nothing beats the sound of music to our ears. The mix of authentic music at Radio Christian Voice, now selling Temwani or Sudan, going at only 100 kwacha. Kantale Tashe by St. Ignatius 11:30 hours choir, going at only 100 kwacha. Mr. Banda, Namishishuna, going at only 100 kwacha. And Phyllis, singing Kulekelele, going at 100 kwacha. Visit us today along Alikinkata Road, opposite Total Fitness Square. Stop piracy. Get authentic CDs and books only at Radio Christian Voice. Radio Christian Voice, your home since '94.
All right, we're back into the second hour of the program. My special guest is Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, and we're running with you through to the top of the hour. So you're at liberty to call us and then join us via Facebook Live. Look for the Radio Christian Voice official page. Post your comment on that wall, and we'll be grateful. Let me start by reading the comments that were coming through as we were hitting the top of the hour, Ambassador.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so Bwanali G says, well articulated, Ambassador, sir. Why is it that you never used to see and implement all these suggestions that you're making here on air? A striker who has failed to score and has been substituted cannot cry to the coach to go back in the field. You had your chance, but you mismanaged it, sir. What do you make of Bwanali G's comments?
First of all, when a striker is substituted, you go back, train hard, and come back. There's nothing wrong with asking to go back on the field. I've never seen even some of the, whether it's Mbappe, they've been substituted before. But it doesn't mean that you put them down forever. So the brilliant ideas, that's why I'm seeking national leadership. Collectively over my experience that I've had in government, in international relations the last 20 years. I'm seeking leadership, to lead from the front. I've led from behind. Where I support presidents, I've supported many presidents. I've advised many presidents, but you're limited in what you can do and what you can achieve. I'll even I like giving this example of a power crisis I tried to deal with in 2015 when we had the worst load shedding in 2015. I organized up to 600 megawatts of power from South Africa. The president was gracious enough to send his Minister of Energy at the time, Honorable Dora Silia. This was organized at our insistence as an office. And we began to plan, and even there was even a repayment process. First, we got the power at the cheapest value. And the amount of power we got, 300 megawatts in the day and up to 600 megawatts in the night. But the deal never took off. There is nothing I could do because ZESCO and Lusaka had other priorities. They were arranging through Mozambique and through a power ship. So while I had arranged power for far, far cheaper and in far bulkier volumes, there was nothing I could do. As an ambassador, I'd done my job, I'd done my role, and then the decisions are made in Lusaka. So one of the reasons we seek leadership at the top is exactly that, because you know what needs to be done for this country. You know that this country is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. There's no justification why our people should be poor. There's no justification why the country should be poor. There's no justification why we think foreigners will develop this country. This allure and fascination with foreigners is very shocking to me. We don't know our own value. One of the insights that I got from African when we're trying to, because this is a question we interrogated every day at the African Union. Africa is rich. Africa is wealthy. Yes, our forefathers tried to bring peace and security and political independence. How can we drive economic independence? How can we bring economic independence to Africa, to Zambia? And then we identified the bottlenecks. The bottlenecks were usually peace and security issues. Now that have been done with. But now they are largely economic issues. We were tied, our economies were tied to our colonial masters and their hegemony. There is no, even if you have political independence, that's why you can have political independence in South Africa and still have up to 80% of the wealth in South Africa owned by a few, by about 8% of the people in South Africa. They can have all the land, they can own all the banks, they can own all the insurance, and there is nothing you can do. So when you are troubled with these questions, you are forced to come up with solutions. One of the big issues is Africa keeps its money abroad. So your pension funds, your insurance funds are kept in, even Bank of Zambia money, Bank of Zambia, these foreign reserves are kept at a bank in Switzerland. So if you don't have your own money, you don't even keep your own money, how then will you help yourselves? So there are deep-seated solutions. And then you have, for me, who worked as a permanent secretary, first for 20 years as a top civil servant, and for about 5 years as a permanent secretary, I understood why the bureaucracy always is difficult to navigate for new presidents. Because new presidents come and go, and they just don't know how to navigate. Like this president is just condemning the civil service, condemning it. He thinks then he will get results. He's firing and firing. It doesn't matter how many people he will fire. If he doesn't understand the civil service, he will not get anything out of them. The civil service is like a horse. You jump on it. If you don't know how to ride it, it will go nowhere. Even if your intentions are noble, even if your journey should be smooth and your destination is one of the destination centers, if you don't know the civil service, you cannot get there. So for me, I have this wholesome understanding. I've advised presidents after presidents. I was close to former President Dr. Frederick Chiluba, who I worked for 10 years. I was very close to President Michael Sata, at a distance with President Rupia Banda through Dr. Chiluba, but close relation with President Michael Sata, where I took proposals and proposals were implemented, such as the Link Zambia 8000, the procurement reforms that we did, were personal proposals that were done, even to President Edgar Lungu. I was close. I was his ambassador in South Africa and in Ethiopia, and I've just explained some of the achievements and the things that we're doing. So when we seek leadership, is that we know what needs to be done. We know how a leadership can be corrupted. We know your leadership. You Zambians, Mwasalo Muntu, you wake up at 04, and your leader responds to Washington, not to you. Your leader responds to big businesses. He will do favors for big businesses who never elected him and neglect Zambians. You need to have a leadership that understands all these issues.
Okay, let me get our very first call on the program, and then I'll be able to cue in a few more and read your text messages. 0960-200-490-1014 Central African Time, or 0967-390-3900. Let's try that line as well. 0967-390-390 and 0960-200-490. All right, you're through to chat back. Good morning. Please kindly give us your name and speak up and where you're calling from. Greg in Solwezi. Please go ahead, Greg.
But Greg, how are you? How's Solwezi? The richest district in Zambia and probably in Africa.
Okay, that's good. No, it's not zero.
No, no.
My question to you, Lorenzo, is I know you are one of the people who contesting and presidential candidates. Now, if you are not selected, but I don't have to listen to your ideas, you have to clear ideas. Are you going to willing to work with anyone that is voted and then you have talked about it. You have opened my book, you have said you're going to make a post of this time around, according to the investment that was so far done. Now, which was only about 2000 that we are talking about. Now, can you see in this constitution, the other case, looking at the right and that, and this is we are put no where to that, we have put no authority, no under authority of power to take the government into account. Because what you have said, we have to see that we cannot just say that you cannot spend money. Because again, you have spoken about the public program that which allows the government to go to have shared contract. That's that time when I went to some of the private. I found that the people who are giving the contract to the foreigner, these are Indian company. What about that then? Can we give the price of it? Just to give us the price of the farmers that we do this and that. Yes, I'm supposed to say no, the government is president. But what is happening on the price? So, when you are down, when you are cutting out, when you are putting a but we don't know. We give you, once it becomes president, the issue goes, we know, we need to contract a big guy. They give you down into the as a president, they just say, okay, bring your company, don't start in 5 years, blah, 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 blah. Then, whatever we are saying, it doesn't matter. This again, I know that that's the discussion. So, what we are doing is to vote in them. But the other private people, they are saying, vote. Or you don't even know what government is do about it. So, this kind of thing, they set up for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Greg. Let me ask him to respond to you. Much appreciated, my brother. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg from Solwezi. I said it's the richest district probably in Africa because, look, Kansanshi is actually a gold mine. That's why it's called copper and gold mine. The other big mines that are within the vicinity, whether it's Kalumbila, whether, so one of the richest provinces in the whole of Africa. And what we have to show for it, this is what we are talking about. We don't even have proper smelting facilities that we can value add to our resources. We allow them to export debt. Amalo wafio which they export. They hide because if we allow them to process, then we will identify that there's copper, there's gold, that there's cobalt. They will know that there's silver, there's nickel, there's other minerals. So they would rather export just literally amalo wafio. And we as a country allow them to. We unfortunately allow them to. He has raised critical issues. Why do we have load shedding? I think I've explained. There's no need for load shedding. We've had adequate power. I know the powers that are off, for example, Ndola Energy, 110 megawatts, because we've shut Indeni. It used to subsist from the heavy oils from Indeni. So Ndola Energy, a private company, has shut. 110 megawatts is out. Mwamba is now back online since yesterday. It has two huge machines, 150 megawatts, another 150 megawatts. So the two machines are now running. But that's why I called this load shedding has nothing to do with poor rainfall or drought. It's just an issue of mismanagement. Because Mwamba Collieries does give a notice to ZESCO a year in advance that at such a day, in such a month, we'll be servicing these machines. Because they have to bring engineers from Europe, from where they have to buy component and service parts for the machine. So they do a notice a year in advance. A good manager will know that Mwamba will be out in December. I will not have 150 megawatts from Indeni. A good manager will know that by November, December, January, I will have less power from Kariba, and they will plan properly, and they will not export power wantonly. They will not export power, without looking at the availability of the power, because there is a difference between generation capacity, which is 3,500, and the production capacity. Because, for example, Kariba is 1,080 megawatts, but we are producing 250 megawatts. How do you cover with the shortfall? And this excuse, let me emphasize. In fact, our largest power producer is no longer Kariba Lake Kariba, it's Kafue River. Because we have 120 megawatts at Iteji. We have at Kafue Gorge 990 megawatts. Kafue Gorge Lower, we're supposed to have 750 megawatts. We have 600 there. In excess of 1,600 megawatts just on Kafue alone. So Kariba. Why aren't they telling you about the 990 megawatts at Kafue Gorge? Why aren't they telling you about the 600 megawatts at Kafue Gorge Lower? And you know the goodness with Kafue Gorge, both gorges, is that you don't need a lot of water because it's on a very steep gorge. So you can run very little water, yes, very little water to run the machines operated at very high rate. It's not like Kariba that needs a lot of water for the machines to run. These are on gorges, very steep gorges. So you have 750 megawatts on Kafue Gorge Lower, 990 megawatts on Kafue Gorge, the original. You have 120 megawatts. And then we begin to add the rest. You have adequate power. But because someone is dedicated to not even to suspend the exports, Namibia has been boasting, literally laughing in our face. There's nothing Zambia can do. Even if they have a power crisis, we've read the power crisis Zambia has. We've heard they're going through 12-hour load shedding, but they can't touch our 180 megawatts. Our contract is tight. Namibia is boasting like that. You've seen the newspapers. I'm a diplomat, I can't use strong words. But we want to angasha. We want to angasha. And Greg is fascinated about the ZPPA Act of 2020. For me, that's my rallying call. We want to Akwalesa. If there is any economic independence that has been done to this country, it is that law. That law ensures that your 167 billion kwacha national budget for 2023, any expenditure done there, whether they are procuring fertilizer, medicines, any bulk and large-scale procurement, should go to a citizen-owned companies. Indalameshi, Shfuideshayakwisa, kuli imwe, wema local businessman. You have permanent secretaries and politicians who are keen to circumvent this law. Be worried. Let it become our national anthem, this new act that has said any money procured subvented by Parliament, appropriated by Parliament, should go, the first choice is citizen first owned company. Then you have local companies. These local companies in procurement terms could be foreign companies but registered in Zambia. Then the third one is the one you go to foreigners. So the first start is Zambian-owned companies, citizen-owned as the law has defined it in the Citizen Act. This is a good law. There are already flurry of activities. People are engaged at Ministry of Justice to amend this law. They are terming it a very bad law. They are saying Zambians have no capacity. You've seen Zams have gone to Egypt. We know that there's an agreement of over $75 million to bring medicine from Egypt. We are aware of that. Your fuel is being procured by foreigners. Your fertilizer is being procured by foreigners. Your large contracts, Lusaka, Kabwe, Lusaka, Ndola, Joe Carriageway will be done by foreigners, despite what the law is. There is an assault on a law that brings economic independence to our people. I want the Zambians to know that. And thank you, Greg, for appreciating. We'll be speaking about it again and again.
All right, Smart Garakara says, good morning, Mr. Lorenzo and the ambassador. If I had power of my own, I would try as the president of Zambia, sir. You remind me of the late President Michael Sata, who said, President Michael Sata, who had information about Zambia on his fingertips. But now, if you became the president of this rich nation, what can you do differently to improve the economy and reduce poverty in our communities? That's from Smart Garakara.
Thank you, Smart. First of all, thank you for the huge comparison with one of my heroes, President Michael Sata. True, information is power, and I've bothered. The experience has taught me to appreciate information. This country is just about information, nothing else. Because they will lie to you again and again. They'll bring IMF and IMF policies, the very IMF policies that destroyed these countries 20 years ago. The very IMF policies that we are struggling to get out. The very IMF policies that created this national crisis of unemployment. But they bring them, they put like a new sweet. It's a bittersweet, but they put a new covering, and you think it's fresh. Without information, you will think it's a good program. You will celebrate the arrival of IMF president to Zambia. It's supposed to be a stain on our conscience when you see such people visit our country. It's supposed to be a stain on our collective vision of this country. When you see the IMF paraded, they take a visit to Zambia, and you are raising flags to receive them. We need to know what they did in the past. And they never apologize. Madam Kristalina Georgieva is coming. I hope at the airport when she meets any of our ministers, she will apologize for the structural adjustment program that brought harm in Africa, that brought harm to Zambia. I hope Madam Kristalina Georgieva, when she lands here, she goes to State House, her first point will be to apologize for the structural adjustment program that deindustrialized our country, that decimated our manufacturing sector. I hope she will apologize. But you will see President Hakainde Hichilema and his who will front her as a hero. You've seen they are celebrating her visit, that this is something very good. This is something harmful. For me, until I see an apology to those sub-programs that destroyed Africa, I will not welcome a person like Madam Kristalina Georgieva. Probably I should take a one-man protest against her visit, because for me, without an apology, IMF should not set their foot here.
Okay, all right. Given Kasongo says there is no need to debate PF and other administrations failed to find solutions to load shedding, we must just encourage the current government to do better. Then Dwayne Mulenga says, Ambassador, are you privy to the real reasons why Archbishop Mpundu cancelled his presser? If so, please shed some light.
Yes, I had an opportunity, and I'll mention here publicly, because I spoke to one of their insiders, because the statement was brilliant. The statement was powerful. It spoke the conscience of this country. Archbishop Telesfo Mpundu's statement spoke the feelings of this country, exactly what this country is going through. And that's why I started by reading the pastoral letter from the collective conscience of the Catholic bishops. The two are almost identical in expressing the feelings of this country. And I spoke to Brebna Changala, who had issued the statement for the cancellation, and I said, Brebna, this is a powerful statement. You are speaking for the people of Zambia. Why would anyone cancel such? Brebna answered me. He says, the trouble with organizations is that voices are different. Some people have arrived. There's tribalism that has risen, where you have a clique that think they should support UPND, and there are others that think that they have a channel to. Some, their sons are appointed as permanent secretaries. Some themselves have got jobs from OSIDA. Some, their supporters were given jobs, and I'm told the difference was just about the approach. They said the statement will inflame the feelings in the country, because the country is teetering at the edge. In Salaid Muchalo, in the crisis that we have in this country. So they thought such a statement will literally pour fire on already a burning big fire. But I think for our own sake as a country, we should have voices like that air out. A leadership should not act to stifle such voices, because it acts as pressure valve, because then you are alerted to the crisis of the country, and therefore you'll be forced to set priorities to attend to this. So in the manner that the president has been casual, attending to every conference that he is called to, even engaged in business discussions, the president should not do in the manner that this president is doing. He should not. Where will they appeal to when things fail, if he's the one driving them? And if he does a bad deal, who do we blame? Where do we go to? The president should never be in front. That's why he has technocrats, permanent secretaries. Not even ministers should be at the forefront of technical discussion. You've seen the president take forefront. That's an abuse of his office. I probably need to read him what the Constitution says for his job description. I probably have to give him a handbook from cabinet, what his job description as president is. He cannot engage energy companies that want to set up companies here. He cannot. It's not his role as president. Because if the sectors bring these proposals to ZESCO, Minister of Energy, then their minister should bring, a cab memo, what we call a cab memo, a cabinet memo to cabinet. Then the collective decision of cabinet approves. Because if it's a president driving the solar companies that want to invest $2 billion, you are going to have a bad deal. There is no way ZESCO cannot sign an agreement that is being pushed by the president. I saw a very terrible picture. ZESCO managing director and a gentleman from Abu Dhabi, and the president is standing at the back and they're signing an agreement. Why should the president drive such an agreement? What if it is bad for our country? Do you know that we owe Mwamba Collieries $500 million because of such a bad deal? Mwamba Collieries is an independent power producer. It generates power from coal, one of our biggest natural resources, and sells ZESCO at 14 cents. But ZESCO sells you 14 cents per kilowatt. ZESCO sells you 6 cents per kilowatt. Who covers the difference? So there is no way ZESCO will liquidate the debt it has with Mwamba. Why is it that? Political interest. And this government, this president is not even hiding. His former president would hide behind ministers and other juniors. Him is the one signing these agreements in front. He might spend the rest of his life in courts of law. And God forbid, we do not want to have presidents when they leave office, they are preoccupied with court issues. But it's this misbehavior, disregard of the Constitution, disregard of cabinet regulations, ignoring his own presidential job description. It's not a duty of the president to be a chief marketing officer. No, you are the boss, Mr. President. You can't be a junior. You can't hold any junior position. You can't be a CEO, Mr. President. You are board chair. Let the technocrats do the job, then you come and look at it with wisdom.
So it's actually wrong for him to address himself as the chief marketing officer?
No, why? Because even me as managing director, I will have a chief marketing officer. So why is the president a junior? Why should he be a junior? Why should he be whatever chief he is calling himself for? He just doesn't understand. He just needs to get back to the Constitution. His job description is in the Constitution. It is for this reason that we have said the president should not be chair of IDC. Because IDC, heads his state-owned enterprises, three of them, they are under IDC, and he chairs the board. Then, by consequence, he approves his board members or not these state-owned enterprises. He literally approves what they do. So imagine ZESCO has an agreement that requires cabinet approval. IDC, him as president, he sits and approves it. Then it comes to cabinet. How will cabinet deal with the matter? If they reject it, what will be the reflection? Because the board chair of IDC is the president. Now he's sitting as head of cabinet. So many people who understand institutional mechanisms have condemned the issue of IDC. From 2013, I was on record on my Facebook page when Honorable Alexander Chikwanda created the IDC and made President Michael Sata chairperson. I actually even called President Michael Sata. One-party state, this conglomeration of power and centralization of power. But Wakateka, this is very bad. I even wrote on my Facebook again in 2015 when President Lungu became IDC chair. I still repeated my concerns publicly because in statecraft, he shouldn't be IDC chair. Someone else should head it because consequently all their decisions as state-owned enterprises will come to cabinet. So the wanton abuse of resources in state-owned enterprises, these ills that are occurring at ZESCO and other state-owned, at Zafico and everywhere else, everything we are seeing on Zamtel and other things, as board chair, is responsible. So the abuse of resources falls on him. maybe I shouldn't be condemning the managing director, because the managing director has created this new position, a zero position. He has elevated everyone and just given them these huge pegs. Maybe I should be condemning his boss, who's Hakainde Hichilema, who is the IDC board chair. That's why there should be these clear roles, this clear separation of powers, and we are not saying that.
All right. Let me get to read a few more messages. This one is coming through from Mulungwe Charles, who says, things are not okay, but we are better. We have peace and Zambians are united. Under the UPND, there is sanity and soberness under the current leadership. I like the way Mr. Mwamba is articulating issues. All right, so Mulungwe here is conflicted, Ambassador. He likes how you're articulating things, but on one hand, he says, no, we're okay with the current government.
First of all, you know, there is this propaganda narrative that came from elections that Zambia was at war, Zambia lost its peace and security, and for the first time, Zambia has peace. I have interrogated these questions and have gone to local and international reports. Zambia still remains a peaceful country. We've never lost that status. Even our ranking are still on top 10, peace and security. So I don't know where this issue comes from, that we lost peace, now peace has come. I know where this comes from. It's from politics. Because you had misbehavior, for example, at Intercity, or at certain markets, at City Market, or maybe in Ndola. That now translated into that Zambia had lost peace. Because you had political violence, UPND and PF clashing at a by-election. We lost the peace. No. All the indices, peace and security indices, Zambia remains one of the top countries, top 10, on over 180 countries. We've never lost a peace. In fact, that's our biggest dividend, that Zambia is a peaceful, stable, and secure country. We've never lost that. There could have been misbehavior in politics, cadreism, the rise of cadreism, thuggerism, political violence in by-elections and in elections. Yes, I think that's all of us have condemned that. In fact, the PF lost power because of that. Zambians cherish peace and security so much that they punish the PF for that violence. If the Lusaka residents saw cadres lining up in minibuses, overtaking and disrupting traffic at lunch hour or at 17 hours, Zambians don't like that. But you could see that misbehavior was beginning to stain our national crisis. So Mkalambwandi Mulonga, Zambia remains a peaceful country. I thought I could just emphasize on that we've never lost our standards. There were things that went wrong. There are things that are going wrong. Today, Mao Sampa is in Northwestern Province. He has reported scale of violence by the UPND. They even prevented him from going. They removed the pontoon where he's supposed to. We have George Sangaus in Lukasha for the by-election. UPND transported violent people in the area. We have Augustine Chandakatotowe in Lunga district. He has reported the same violence where UPND cadres even went and threatened the local parish priest there, and they've threatened to transfer him. I don't know if they know how powerful the Catholic is. I don't know how UPND thugs think that they can transfer a parish priest, but they went and threatened, and the parish priest was his life literally was in danger. Zambians are watching, and they are looking at UPND and laughing at UPND. It's like UPND never learned anything, never learned from the mistakes of the PF, and they are sadly repeating the things that should be behind us.
All right, this one says, good morning. We voted PF as a protest against against what Zambians were going through. To tell you the truth, PF started going down when you had put ECL as your leader and sidelined founder members. And then he goes on to say, to tell you the truth, Zambians still love PF. When you choose a leader, please, we beg you to unite. The UPND has a lot of lies, which they are still feeding us. Jesus warned us that liars are children of Satan. That's coming through from Vashi Kennedy in Ndola.
Yeah, you can get two more.
Okay, so let me get another one coming through. This one reads, good morning. It's unfortunate that this man always plays the blame game. I wish these people would bring solutions to the table. Unfortunately, he is politicking. So you haven't given me your name, But thank you. This must be Vincent K. Mukwasa. Okay, thank you, Vincent. And then this one reads, good morning, Mr. Leusha and Honorable Mwamba. I'm enjoying the program. Honorable Mwamba, things are bad. People's businesses are crumbling down because of load shedding. Chickens are dying rapidly. The welding businesses can't take in new orders because some won't be able to meet the due date. Hairdressers, how is one going to blow their hair without electricity? We highly depend on electricity for everyday life. As if that is not enough, life has become more expensive. Hunger has broken into people's homes. Poverty is slowly creeping in, and nothing reasonable is being done about it. Something needs to be done about it before it's too late. With the way things are looking now, Zambia might face a famine. Nina Zulu from Great North Road. How do you come in, Ambassador?
Oh, powerful, powerful sentiments. You know, we warned the failure of the FISI program would be a failure of our national food security, and we are seeing in the rise of prices of milling. You know, harvest is not near until April, May, and you know it has to dry up. It's only available June, July, and here you are. You found harvest from 2019. There was a bumper harvest 2019, 2020, 2021. You decide to export you're beyond national strategic reserves. Then you bungle and mismanage the FISI program, where 1.1 million smallholder farmers benefit from. And you literally have destroyed the lives of these 1.1 million. They depend on that FISI program to feed themselves and then feed the nation, because they're the one that feed us. So I agree with you. There's a gentleman from Ndola who's saying, I haven't provided, I've just condemned and I haven't provided. I think he hasn't been.
Vincent.
Yeah, Vincent, he's not listening. I don't know how many solutions I've provided here. Sectoral, for every criticism I've provided a solution. Please do some active listening, Vincent. Thank you very much for your concern. Lies. You know, the Bible in John 8 verse 44 is very strong about liars. And for us Christians, we should take this very, very seriously. In fact, the Bible says, you are of your father, the devil, and it is your will to practice the desires of your father, the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning and doesn't stand in the truth. Because there is no truth in him, he's a liar. When he lies, he speaks his native language. That's a description of lies. That actually when you lie, you are speaking the native language of the devil. You are no longer even speaking in English. Mulanda muchitundu chenu as devils. That's what the Bible says. So I wish that this government and its leaders could take seriously the habitual lies. You saw the Catholic bishops condemn these lies. And the statement by Archbishop Telesfo Mpondo yesterday, he says we cannot elevate lies to become a virtue. That when someone lies, it has become a good thing or something we can ignore. The Catholic bishops, Archbishop Telesfo Mpondo, like every Christian knows, a lie signifies something spiritually deep. And the Bible says when you lie, you are speaking in the native language of the devil. So tamlelanda nechitundu chimbi, you are speaking in your natural language as the devil. Namya kukati. That's when you lie. So this government collectively and Zambians have agreed that they are liars. It's a very bad indictment from the biblical perspective. If President Hakainde Hichilema is being termed as a liar, it is a very bad indictment from the perspective of the Bible. Because the Bible says, for these liars, they are speaking their natural, native language, as the Bible calls it. So,
Okay. All right. This message is coming through from Andre. All right. So Andre has quite a number of messages for you, Ambassador. So let me read them all. Okay. All right. So he starts by saying, good morning, Lorenzo and boy Emmanuel Mwamba. I trust you are both fine. First, let me begin by saying, sir, you are informed. Interesting to hear you bring certain facts out. The PF left at a time the issue of load shedding was still there. The UPND came and rashly ended it. Now we are here. This just shows that the load shedding is necessary as this issue has not yet been completely dealt with. Hopefully, with the measures being put by the president and the new dawn, we'll resolve this completely, at least in our lifetime. Why is the PF all of a sudden sounding like they care for the Zambian people? Why didn't you end load shedding? That's his first question. Second message, he says, don't you think that you have contradicted yourself by saying we can't store power, therefore exports are necessary? Are you being fair in saying that the ZESCO MD knows nothing? I think the way the current government is responding to critics in this load shedding is civil. I still remember how the PF would respond, even suggesting Zambians should naturally feel the Kariba, to put it mildly. All right, he probably means pee in the Kariba. Lastly, why didn't you implement these ideas when in power? Ambassador Mwamba, but now ZESCO is no longer being accused of having party cadres as ghost workers like PF. One is even in court, we are told. That's Francis Muchemo, I think he's referring to. And then his third message, PF seems to be so united before the convention. Should you lose the bid to be the next